Compost almost called to me. If I weren't farming, I would be in the compost making industry. I love it so much. I love building a compost pile. There's something about the alchemy of turning the repulsive stuff that people don't know what to do with into like the substrate of life. My name's Tyler Morse. This is Brier Patch Farm. This farm is structured in a way where this is the home plot, and I have other plots scattered throughout the neighborhood. We call it market gardening. So I manage other plots in other people's yards. They eat out of their yard. I do all the work, and I sell the extra in a CSA, farmer's market, or whatever, restaurants, whatever I can manage. My source materials for making your own compost, it's a recipe. It's not just like throwing stuff in a heap and letting it go. You measure stuff out in buckets and to write everything down and combine everything, really diffuse it. I spread everything on a tarp and one, as much as I can get on the tarp at a time. There's manure, there's a high nitrogen component, some kind of manure, and then there's the green material and the brown material, higher carbon, and then relatively high nitrogen. The high nitrogen stuff is what gets the heat up. The green material is what sustains the heat, and the brown material allows for air to get in and to keep it aerobic. And controlling for moisture is super important. Super easy to make a pile too moist. And I've learned that by screwing up many piles. That's like the thing that took me the longest, is figuring out the moisture. But when you have this down, and you turn the pile twice. It's all you need when you're doing it this way. And you turn it very carefully. You're not just like, just throwing it over. Like there's an order to it, and so you don't have to, if you're careful, you don't have to do it as many times. And it cooks more thoroughly. And then when it cools down to ambient temperature, is when that's the thermophilic phase is finished. But then the letting it age, as they say, is when the fungus really starts to take over. And you can let it age for ideally 6 months, at least, even as a year or two. If your soil's really low in organic matter in general, you want to get some sign of organic matter in there. You need at least 3% for biology to really thrive. You can't overdo it. You can go up to 10%, 15%, whatever. So you can grow in straight compost, and it's, fabulous results. You can mix a little sand in for a little better drainage. But when I started doing that, my yields were just going like doubling with microgreens. As opposed to the expensive pre-bought, pre-bagged mix. I would do side by side just the straight mix from the store, and then I would do another with some added compost in it with different fractions. And whenever I added compost, it was like everything was better. So, and I figured like that's going to translate to all this too. With making compost, finding materials sometimes can be tricky. You need a high nitrogen source like beer mash, animal manures. I've got horses. We live in Brier. A lot of people have horses and livestock. I'm lucky in that sense. I can just go down the road and pick up. She's getting rid of her manure all the time, and I'm helping her out. So it's a win-win. And I dry it and I'll store it. I've got having the materials processed in a size that's good for mixing. You don't want to have super big. Everything should be 2 inches or smaller, or I get it smaller than that for mixing the materials well enough at the beginning for even heat and an even product. It's easy to have hot spots and cold spots if you're not mixing it right. So there's that challenge. And then I invested in a chipper shredder now so that I can process, just throw materials in. I was running over stuff with a lawnmower, like a push lawnmower, and I was like, this is dumb. And so chipper shredder is a total game changer for for having materials to use. And but you can use anything. You can use anything on your property. It's amazing. My advice to people wanting to make good compost, there's a lot of ways out there, like on YouTube or whatever, that I have found there's just something missing from all of these kind of instructions that you're given that I've just never had success with. Be patient with yourself is kind of number one. I had to do several piles before I got it down, like holding the temperature for the correct amount of time, turning it correctly, and just thinking through all the components of how to turn it correctly, and then getting a better tool to do it. And you're gonna have to experiment. Put your experimentation cap on and not expect it to work out for maybe 3 or 4 piles, because you actually have to see how your ingredients react with each other before you can just assume that what you have is the right nitrogen carbon ratio to keep things where they need to be. And so I had to, pile 4 or 5 is when I got it down, and then I've made probably 10 or 12 now. So patience.